from the reason Blizzard removed these mounts to a whole zone going missing. These are the 21 strangest things removed from World of Warcraft. They went all out with the original epic mounts with the iconic armor on the horse, wolves, kodos, and more. But did you know that was not the original plan? When the game was first released in 2004, the epic mounts actually didn't have any armor, and they were just like the normal version. Later, removing the unarmored epic mounts, they finally added the armored ones. Removed and gone forever. Not even in the 2019 re-release of Classic WoW were they featured. Does anyone remember? They removed Wrath of the Lich King Battleground, Strands of the Ancient. When this expansion was released, they added a battleground, a 15 vs 15 siege mode, where one team defended and the other was trying to break into a giant fortress, breaking down layer after layer of walls, until you got to the end, where the attacker destroyed the base of the defender, and the defender using cannons to hold off the attacker until they run out of time and win. But a whole decade after the battleground was initially added, it was removed by the developers until the release of Wrath of the Lich King Classic, where it's once again featured as a battleground. But that is not the only battleground removed from the game. Back in Cataclysm, Tol Barad was added. It was a world PvP epic battleground, just like Ashran or Winter Grasp. It also featured one of many daily quest hubs during the Cataclysm. But after the expansion ended, it was never brought forward, added into the pool as an epic battleground. So now it stands as an unused relic, removed from any PvP use. But do you remember when a whole zone was removed? During the Warlords of Draenor expansion, you were able to see a full island to the north of the map existing, where Netherstorm used to be an outland. You can also see with tons of evidence in the files of an entire island existing out there, hundreds of assets, characters, and more, and a whole storyline never added into the game. And using some smart exploits and seeing huge barren land masses never used. And then it was completely deleted from the game, never to be seen again. But you could still spot evidence of the island in the files and promotional art for the game. But that is not the only place removed from Warlords of Draenor. The second zone removed is still visual on the main map in the bottom left corner. Right there, you can see half an island sticking out like a sore thumb, never explained by Blizzard. There are theories that this was supposed to be another patch removed from Warlords of Draenor. The only information we have about this island was confirmed during BlizzCon, where they said it's the homeland of the ogres. You could even fly there during the beta, where the zone was pretty much just a cutout of Outland Negrant. And after the beta was finished, it was removed out of the game and never spoken of again. There are lots of items removed from the game, including old items that used to be easy to obtain in older versions of the game. The Defiance leather was a black armor set back in classic WoW, only dropping from the dead mines. It became popular with its unique appearance, being all black. But when the Cataclysm released, the dungeon was changed, and the items were removed from the loot pool, and because there were no other NPCs dropping this item, it was never seen again, only remaining in some lucky few inventories. Weapon skills was one of the cornerstones of World of Warcraft, and an important feature of any RPG game. Using your weapons and improving your skill, doing more damage, and killing the enemy faster. But in Cataclysm, the feature was removed, and Blizzard explained it had become irrelevant in the game. It became more annoying than practical for players, because every expansion they added higher weapon skills, so you have to farm this unnecessary thing over and over again. And a feature like this has never been seen again in the game. During the same time, there was a removal of the only class-specific profession, poisons for the rogue. Back in the day, you used to have to buy each one of the reagents to craft poisons to apply to the weapon, and if you ran out, bad luck. You have to go back to the city, go to the auction house, get the reagents, craft new ones, and apply to the weapon once again. But during the Cataclysm expansion, Blizzard thought it was unfair for one class to have an extra profession, unlike all the others, adding extra work for not a lot of gain. So they decided to remove the whole profession, simply making it into a button you press, according to them, streamlining the experience. At the same time, they also removed a second thing from rogues, the lockpicking level. You had to level up your lockpicking to unlock harder locks. But they changed it into it simply being your character's level, so you didn't have to train and use lockpicking. But going back to Wrath of the Lich King, this one is one of the most mysterious items removed from the game. It was not supposed to be there in the first place. During the Old War raid, one of the players received a legendary item from a GM by accident, Martin's Fury, a legendary chestplate that could kill anyone within a certain area, and when the raid released, he was using the item to kill the bosses instantly, progressing the raid extremely fast with his guild. So Blizzard took note of the unusual speed, killing all the bosses in mere seconds. But fortunately, they were stopped by Blizzard before any real damage could have been done using the item. The item was then removed from the player's inventory, and he and his entire guild got banned for using it. And in later expansions, the item was even removed from the game files and replaced by a grey version. But that is not the only item removed for being too good. The carrot on a stick is a classic item that everyone has used at some point. You'd receive it after doing some quest during vanilla WoW, and after equipping it in the trinket slot, it would give your mount a slight speed boost of 10% as long as you wore it. But in the Cataclysm expansion, just like tons of other beloved features, it was cut, being made unobtainable for normal players. And for higher levels, they added a level cap, making it so no one above the level 60 was able to use the item. So it was both removed as a quest item and made unusable for 99% of the player base. One of the most undeveloped zones in Classic was gonna be something you probably didn't expect. The zone on top of Orgrimmar, Ashara, has very few quests and things to do. That's because it was actually supposed to be a battleground from the beginning. In later stages of development, they realized they didn't have enough time to finish it, so they scrapped it and made it into a zone instead. And how we know this is actually, as many things before, we could find evidence of the zone in the files, seeing a whole map featuring the same colors, buildings, and ideas. But the battleground was removed from the game and replaced with this zone, and that's the reason it's very underdeveloped. Unlike this one, the next item removed was an integral part of the gameplay, but back before the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. Almost all dungeons had a long attunement process, had to do long quest lines, hand in items, and kill rares. At the end of this adventure, they would receive the honor of having the key to the dungeon. It was most prevalent in the Burning Crusade expansion, but slowly phased out in the Wrath of the Lich King until being completely removed. In you guessed, Cataclysm. One of the rare items that got removed from the game is an item only one player got dropped and then got removed. It was removed during the first raid in WoW history, Molten Core. The item was the legendary Talisman of the Blinding Shard, a necklace making a shining effect on your chest. When Blizzard saw this item was accidentally dropped, they quickly scrambled to delete it from the loot pool before anyone else got it. But they decided against deleting it from his inventory, making it a special artifact from an item that was not supposed to be in the game. The original purpose of the item was supposed to be a part in the quest chain to obtain the legendary sword Thunder Fury, but they decided against adding this extra step in the quest process. But for some reason, this item was accidentally left in. But all the removed items in the game are not super rare from the beginning, but they started as normal items. The Ruby Shades are some normal looking red glasses added in the Fury of the Sunwell update during the Burning Crusade expansion. It was just sold from a normal NPC for 2,000 gold, but later getting removed from the loot pool and never re-added, because these were some costly glasses and they did absolutely nothing. And back in the day, in Burning Crusade, when these were added, transmogs didn't exist yet, so they had literally zero use. So this removed item, 20 years later, cost millions of gold to buy. Back to class-specific things that were removed from the game. Quivers and pouches. In older versions of WoW, you used to have to buy arrows, and you would carry them in quivers so you could have larger stacks of items. And if you had a gun, you would have pouches to carry the ammo. And that was a part of the game until, you guessed, Cataclysm. And the ammo and the quivers used to have different types of buff depending on which one you got, helping out with the DPS and more, like faster shots or more damage. And another thing with quivers, you used to be able to see them on the back of your character, unlike the other classes, giving them a unique look for the hunters. But as I said in Cataclysm, they were all removed from the game, making them all grey and unusable items. But some of the old characters still have some of them left in the inventory from back in the day. Another thing that was removed from the game forever after the Burning Crusade is the Competitor's Tabard, an item to celebrate the 2008 Beijing Olympics. The tabard was given to anyone who played the battleground during the event. But after it was over, they never re-added the event into the game, and by the time of the next Olympics, it didn't appear again, removed forever. One of the most forgotten mounts that was promised to players, but then removed, is the Reigns of the Bengal Tiger, an epic mount in classic WoW, added early in the development, seen in the files of the game, but no one knew how to get it. Players even theorized it was obtained by a special secret tunnel in Tanam Jungle in the far corner, and players hunted for years to find a secret way to obtain the mount until one day it was removed without any comment. But many years later, in Season of Discovery, they actually added the mount, finally making it usable for all players. But you cannot talk about things that were removed from Classic without mentioning all of the zones that got removed or severely changed during the Cataclysm. And with this event, at the same time, it removed hundreds of items, quests, and rewards. Back in Cataclysm, they did not have the feature where you could teleport back to older versions of every zone. So when the expansion released, they were gone, never to be seen again. Meaning, so every time they update or change a zone, adding or removing a small part or a big one, you had no option but to play in the newest version. So when the Cataclysm came, all the old zones in the game were completely removed and uprooted until in the 2019 re-release of Classic WoW. Not only were 2 whole continents, but also the original Max raid from Classic that was added in 1.11, the final raid of Classic. But years later, when Wrath of the Lich King came out, they removed the Classic raid and re-released it as a new one. Their reasoning was, so few people actually beat it in Classic, so they would release it once again. But with that, the original was removed. And the rarest thing to be ever removed from WoW is not such a special looking item, the fluorescent green Mechano Strider, which was given to a random player by accident by a GM in 2005, kept in his account for years and years and years, until he decided to sell it, where at that point he got permanently banned.